way too much anyway. Thank you guys for bearing with me there. Nothing like a few-minute pause to develop some tension. I was already deemed the champion of the chamber, so expectations have risen, I'm sure.
A champion.
A champion, yes, okay. Better. You have the sheet there, so you can just cycle through the slides as it says slide change.
Okay.
Awesome. So thank you, Shirley. It was an honor to be acknowledged at the OBAs last year, and especially humbling that the Chamber asked me to come today and speak to you all. When they requested I speak, they asked me to share my story with you and talk about me. Originally, I didn't like the idea of that. That is until I decided today I would talk about my journey as a case study for what I believe are important community values that shape the kind of entrepreneurs we want in our city. So my goal today is to share my story with you and how I found entrepreneurship, the role our community played in my success, and how as a community we can recreate this through social, cultural, and economic support systems. I believe a loving, caring, generous, and supportive community has quantifiable value for our local economy and quality of life. I would say I'm a very optimistic person. Anyone that knows me would probably agree, and some might suggest I'm optimistic to a fault. This is because I seem to always have hope that what I would like to happen will come to fruition. However, at times it doesn't, and those are the times that I will face failure. The reason for this is likely because of my life growing up and the vital role that hope played in my well-being. However, what is often misunderstood is that I'm also completely aware of all the potential risk and the less desirable outcomes that face me. Understanding those risks clearly and taking proactive measures is what has allowed me to be both successful and also optimistic. So what am I optimistic about now? I share a vision for our community with many, many others. This is a vision that Sarnia-Lambton will thrive and reach its potential, that we will be respected amongst our peers, that we will look after the land under our domain, and that we will support people within our community with no exceptions. I would like Sarnia to be a place where my children want to work and grow and live, and maybe start their own business. This is my expectation of our community, and I'm 100% certain it will be met. So what is the problem? The problem is this vision is at risk. Maybe not in its entirety, but it's definitely aspects of it. This is true in every community. Sarnia is by no means a black sheep. When balance isn't properly managed, our potential can always not be met, and there's always room for improvement. And I know I sound weird talking about kids. I'm 23, but I have a 5-year-old and a new one on the way. So why am I telling you this? Entrepreneurs play the biggest role in managing that balance. As influencers and leaders and decision makers in our community, it's up to you to manage the balance and grow our community in ways that serve people within it. You see office and retail businesses with barriers, you remove them. You see a community that lacks diversity, and you bring that community together and you play them international films. You see a lack of affordable housing, you build it. You see a community that needs to lighten up and have a drink, you make them beer. My goal today is to simply reinforce your understanding of this and hopefully give new perspective with my story. So where does my story begin? My parents originally moved to Canada in 1994. They were both Tamil, Sri Lankans escaping genocide of their people. In 1995, I was born in Scarborough, Ontario, and in 1997, my mom was given 3 options for where we would live. My mother was in a very abusive relationship, and social services had provided us 3 options for where we could live. And one was Brampton, one was St. Thomas, and one was Sarnia. So she looked at the map and she saw that Sarnia was the furthest one away, and that's where we decided to move and call home. When we arrived in Sarnia, my mother had 3 children, no money, no job, didn't speak English, didn't know a single person in the city. Building a life from here would have been very difficult. So my mother quite rationally decided she would raise us to the best of her ability and stop generational poverty dead in its tracks. Our livelihood relied on the monthly child tax and welfare we received. However, oftentimes that wasn't enough. So here's a slide showing some of the organizations I grew up growing very familiar with. One of the most impactful moments of my life was in 2008 when my family was a recipient of a Habitat for Humanity home build. Habitat built us a home, it was like we won the lottery when we found out. I remember my mom told us that we were gonna get a house, and we were like jumping up and down, like crying and screaming. It was crazy because the four of us lived in a small 2-bedroom apartment, so my sister was like sleeping in my mom's bed, and it was just very, very cramped. So I remember that this year it really clicked for me. I was 13, but it clicked. I realized I had a debt to Sarnia and the people that helped my family over the years. And I had a lot of pride growing up, so I'd always tell my mom, don't worry, like we're gonna pay them all back with interest. You know, and to this day, she's still kind of holding me to it. In 2012, my mom broke a very big rule as a East Asian parent. She let me drop out of high school. The system wasn't working for me, and I was concerned I would fail if I continued in it. And although she was against it, it's really not like our culture. She let me own my decision. So that led to my first business. So, and believe me, those aren't middle fingers. That's a V. It stands for Victor. The summer before my peers would enter grade 12, I decided I want to start a clothing company. Growing up in a community where people would hear things like, he's really good, but he's from Sarnia. She's got a gift, but she's from Sarnia. I think I could make it, but I'm from Sarnia. I was inspired to create a clothing company that would basically put, I'm a winner, right on the chest of kids in our community. So I started Victor Apparel Company. We quickly became the most talked about brand in the high school community and the most successful local clothing line to date, selling over 3,000 items. This later, I started teaching myself music production, and this led to my second business, a recording studio. I worked with dozens of artists in the area and quickly made a good living actually working out of my mom's basement. At this point I was 17. The studio business led to learning photography and video, which changed my business to full media production. I was a successful freelancer, working full-time, juggling all these different skills and services, and that's when I realized I was starting to reach my plateau. You know, I could only go so far as a freelancer. If I wanted to make real impact on the world, my community, I would need a team. So this was the birth of Tomorrow Inc., previously known as Tomorrow Media. Now we got rid of the media because it was a ceiling for us, but in 2016, I convinced 4 of my friends to quit their jobs and start a company with me, each with different skills that they could bring to the table. We quickly found our roles and had an office downtown in a couple months. This office was really just a bachelor apartment. There was a shower and a kitchen in it. And it came in handy during those overnight work sessions. Our first meeting with the chamber, actually, Shirley remembers, that the chamber staff came to our office when we were working on the website. It was you, JD, and Anna, and we were sitting there. And I remember we had lit some candles to hopefully hide the fact that we were living there. 5 men in a 700 square foot space. I hope they didn't smell anything. However awkward, this was our start. And the company rapidly grew from there, from basically nothing to now it is quite a very large operation, almost 3 years later. Once our brand gained some local traction, we were constantly getting inquiries for assistance in some way from different organizations, all sorts of initiatives. And what I kind of learned was anytime it was a nonprofit or a fundraiser or a charity or someone that had a good idea like Swift or Fashion Week, I couldn't say no. And it was in the back of my head, I had this debt for Sarnia, and if I had a way I could help and I wasn't busy doing something else, like sleeping, I was helping them. So now Tomorrow Inc. is partnered with many events, nonprofits, charities that we believe make our community a better place economically, culturally, socially. And we even started our own shared space initiative, now All Space, which is home to the downtown market, co-working space, the largest in the city, and an event center on 136. I feel deeply that this community gave me a shot to do great things. I wonder what would have happened if I grew up in St. Thomas or if I grew up in Brampton. Dropping out of high school, getting my girlfriend pregnant at 17, and quitting my job after my son was born were all things that should have decided my fate and pissed off my mom. But they didn't, because the opportunity entrepreneurship gave me allowed me to create a positive life for me and my friends and my family. Today my mom is very proud of everything I'm doing and the pride I have brought my family. Growing up, I didn't know someday I would make something of myself. Like I had that confidence because I had people in my life and in this community rooting for me. the church and the school, they were always in my ear. Don't worry, Lee, like, you're gonna do good. Your mom's a great woman. You know, you guys are on your way. I know today that I'm going to help solve problems, employ good people, and influence a culture that's alive, inclusive, and positive. So please consider the impact we can make on those who are marginalized, and acknowledge the balance that we should maintain economically in our community. As an entrepreneur, I have had many investors invest their time, their money into my business. However, it was the community of Sarnia that first invested in me and my family and believed we deserved a fair shot at a great life. So for that, I'm very thankful, and you will be very happy with your ROI. Thank you.